and also the issue of access to cleaner technologies is also a problem. So you find that most of what is the projects that are implemented, it's either with the support of development partners, and these ones really remain at the demonstration level or pilot level, and there's no mechanism of scaling that up so that you have many more businesses embracing that. And you find also that most of the policies and the regulations actually lack elements of circularity or, issues like efficiency, industrial symbiosis, and all that. That you find that for those businesses that you've already piloted this on, when the institutions themselves, whether they are the environmental regulators or the ministries of industries, when they're engaging with these businesses, like the businesses have got to actually now train them in order for the institutions to be able to either inspect them or to support them. So you can see that also the institutions have not, so to speak, ecologically innovated their systems, their process and operations, and staff in these institutions do not speak the language of circularity. So you find that, again, this stifles widespread application and adoption of these models by businesses. So you find that in countries like, for example, say like in Kenya, we will find within the environmental agency, there is a police unit that is assisting in enforcement, but there's no equivalent unit promoting circular economy. So you find that, therefore, that much as we will need also to review our regulations to align with the green economy strategies and implementation plans, the institutions have got to innovate and breathe life to these regulations that we are talking about. So a lot of capacity building is required for the MSMEs, but also for the institutions. Yes.
Great. Thank you very much, Jane. So that's first a little bit of input from our panel. We are going to come back to different other panelists in a minute. I'm going to ask Colombia to come in, and I'm going to ask a question. Colombia has been investing significantly in innovation and promoting competitiveness of its country and enterprise, including small and medium-sized enterprise. Which initiatives do you promote, and which results are starting to collect from this effort?
Thank you so much for this great opportunity to share the experiences of our country. I would just like to start mentioning that we have a green constitution. Our constitution from 1991 mandated many aspects related to green growth. So we had we created the Ministry of the Environment in 1993 with institutional infrastructure that, of course, enable the further policies that were developed, like the clean production policy, also the green growth policy that we enacted in 2018, and 2010, the sustainable production and consumption policy, and 2014, the National Green Business Plan. Just to land there on this National Green Business Plan, many of you can recognize that Colombia is a biodiverse country. We have more than 52% of forest cover. So this, of course, is imperative for us to design and create green businesses. So as I said, we established our National Green Business Plan in 2014, and through that we have been working with more than 1,300 verified green businesses in the country. How do we verify this, and how do we make sure that they are complying or in compliance with the criteria that we have established for green businesses? So we have subnational regional environmental authorities, which are 33 in the country, 17 of which are located in the most biodiverse areas in the country. They have a one-stop green business office. So these offices, what they do, they provide technical assistance and support to businesses that would like to embargo into this into this type of business. And at the same time, we provide them with a certificate that will allow them also for the business to move on. So we have, for instance, in biocommerce, we have many different type of business, including businesses now on medicinal plants and on sustainable fisheries. We have also on the cosmetic, for instance, the biogeographic area of Choco. They are using products from nature to produce hand creams, shampoos. So it's a large, I would say, scope that our green business have. But one of the most successful one is the ecotourism, which is, of course, it's based on national parks, but at the same time, it's used other landscapes and scenarios of the country to develop. So we are very happy, and all these are aligned with the SDGs goals. We have like 13 of the 17 SDG goals that are linked to the green businesses. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Of course, we should recognize that we wouldn't be having sustainable development goals without the government of Colombia and the vision. And if you haven't looked at their voluntary report to the high-level political forum, it's one of the best. It's got some great work on indicators that you've done as well. So it's a pleasure to have you here. I'm going to ask Luxembourg next to speak. So my question to Luxembourg, in the experience of Luxembourg, how can government play a catalytic role in supporting innovation, including access to finance? How can innovative enterprises start benefiting from this?
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be part of this. And Luxembourg has, since we are a small country with little resources, we have been interested in circular economy for a long while. So we created a hotspot, and I think, first of all, policy awareness is of absolute importance, that we need to meet the climate goals and go for circularity in order to protect the resources. Secondly, having the right framework. So on European scale, we are working on a circular economy, which means better waste management, reducing, and also linking this with chemicals in order to phase out all the hazardous materials, problem materials, in order to be able to close the loop. So the framework on a political level is of utmost importance if it comes to waste management, reduction, circularity, and then the third point is building capacities as well, innovating and reorienting money, because our calculation models that we face at the moment are not in line with circularity or climate a resilient world. So speaking to the finance sector, we have been doing a sustainable finance roadmap together with the UN Environmental Financial Initiative here, but we have also doing a lot in bringing together the different actors. I'm working with my finance minister. We have a climate finance task force and also a sustainable finance task force. Secondly, I'm working together with the economy ministry. We created a platform already in 2014 in order to bring the actors together, because often you have very small actors, startups, and if you bring them together, you make clusters. We call it clusters. So we have an eco-innovation cluster, we have a vote cluster, where you bring the private owners of forests together with the sector beneath. So having people together, also listening as a government, what are the needs and where are the barriers in our legislation in order to bridge the gaps, also the gaps between short-term thinking and long-term investment. So I think this is of utmost importance. A last point I want to make, not only all actors on a private base, but also public actors. So public procurement, circular public procurement, also in your budget, calculating another way the investments that you do, because you can reuse the materials that you're investing in, is of utmost importance. That's why we have a volunteer agreement between the national level to work for climate, with local authorities to develop strategies, so climate resilience strategies, climate mitigation strategies, and we enlarge this to circularity in order to be able to speak to everyone, to have also a local engagement, not only the national one, which is an important one, to have better procurement, but also the local level involved, because a transition is a transition by all. And this is the lifestyle changes, going to sharing. Going away from linear to circular means also really sharing economy, co-creation spaces. So redesigning our local places means to be resilient. And for these reasons, all levels have to work together in legislation, in investing, and in reorienting.
Thank you very much. I think maybe there's a role, if you're clustering, for doing something on cooperatives and getting them to perhaps link together. You mentioned the UNEP Finance Initiative, and if people haven't looked at the UNEP Finance Initiative, it's one of the best, I believe, one of the best programs in UNEP, and their work on principles of responsible investment, principles for sustainable banking. These are really important areas, and I strongly recommend you look at them. I'm going to ask Poland to come in next, and so the question for Poland is, Poland has developed innovative programs to support innovation of small and medium-sized enterprise. Which specific instruments did you put in place, and how did you see SME enterprises reacting to these opportunities?
Thank you very much for this opportunity to be with you and to share our experience. Now, I want to say that we started by placing SMEs and innovation as priorities of our governmental strategy, which we did 2 years ago. In fact, even the name of the strategy is close to that, because we call it Strategy for Responsible Development. Originally, we wanted to use the word sustainable, but we thought that the word responsible would better respond, to the current and the future needs. So first, to place it as a priority of the state, of the government. Second, we changed the environment, for businesses. In fact, we introduced a package of different legal acts, which we called business constitutions, and some of them, for example, allowed small, medium-sized businesses to easier access public procurement. That was one of them. And we introduced many programs. For example, we've got now the biggest program for startups in this part of Europe, with over 1 billion euro for startups. We simply want, not only in Poland, but in general in Europe, we want startups to be established in Europe, to stay in Europe, and to develop to the world from Europe. And for example, not from the United States. This is the problem which we face, that many such startups, they escape, from Europe, or sometimes even they escape to Luxembourg, which we also do not like, very much. So this is, this is the biggest program. We have now really some good examples of that. But what is important, we now designed a number of programs which will be huge investment programs, and from which we would like our SMEs to benefit based on their innovations. These are programs, for example, directed to clean air, a huge program for 10 years with 25 billion euro, and we hope our SMEs will benefit from that. Special program for housing, as we still have a substantial housing gap in our country. And this is usually what SMEs do, because they do construction, they provide materials. And the last one, concerning circular economy, this is what we have just started to talk with UNEP. We will be very pleased to cooperate on that. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask Belgium. According to the 2018 European Innovation Scoreboard, Belgium is a leader in innovation. Which enabling conditions did you put in place to promote innovation for sustainability?
Thank you. I will speak in French.
Okay.
Tout d'abord, merci à tous de nous permettre de parler dans un environnement agréable, où on se croirait donc dans un salon, comme si nous discutions entre amis d'un problème qui est quand même fondamental et qui pourrait nous faire peur. Nous avons d'énormes défis à relever et chaque fois que nous nous retrouvons, nous faisons au fond le compte de ce que nous avons fait et de ce que nous devons encore faire. Et ce que nous avons fait, c'est déjà beaucoup, mais ce n'est vraiment pas assez par rapport à tout ce qu'on doit encore faire. Et ce matin, au breakfast, nous avons eu l'occasion de discuter de la manière d'implémenter trois enjeux fondamentaux. C'est la lutte contre les gaz à effet de serre, c'est la préservation de la biodiversité et les objectifs de développement durable. Et donc, parvenir à mettre tout ça ensemble est un défi au quotidien pour tous les ministres en charge de cette problématique. Ceci étant dit, en Belgique, qu'est-ce que nous avons fait? Tout d'abord, je vais aller directement sur un point concret. En économie circulaire, nous nous sommes rendus compte, avec une étude, que nous pourrions augmenter de manière formidable le produit intérieur brut de notre pays en économie, parce qu'il y avait de nouvelles voies à explorer en économie circulaire et que cela permettrait de créer énormément d'emplois. Et on s'est demandé comment concrètement on pouvait lancer un plan. Donc on a fait un plan de 21 mesures et on a créé un lien avec le Luxembourg et les Pays-Bas. Donc c'est pour ça que je suis contente de parler... why not? Why not? Mais vous devez savoir que le Luxembourg, les Pays-Bas et la Belgique forment depuis le début de l'Europe une plateforme qui s'appelle le Benelux. Et dans ce cadre-là, nous avons beaucoup d'échanges entre nous, de bonnes pratiques. Nous avons décidé de créer un hub, en réalité, sur l'économie circulaire et de travailler à des politiques concrètes, non seulement sur le plan national, mais également jusqu'au plan local dans cette matière. La deuxième chose que nous avons faite, c'est, dans notre pays et un peu partout cela a été fait, créer un environnement financier favorable. Donc, tout d'abord, nous avons lancé un plan national d'investissement stratégique dont le cœur de cible sont les investissements structurels en matière environnementale. Et nous avons lancé aussi des obligations vertes, des green laws, qui ont rapporté, dans un premier temps, presque 5 milliards d'euros pour pouvoir financer l'innovation. Et la troisième chose, c'est que nous avons à Anvers, par exemple, un hub d'innovation, d'entreprises innovantes qui développent tous les jours de nouvelles façons de produire en demandant moins d'énergie, donc moins d'impact sur l'environnement, et en trouvant de nouvelles façons de créer de la valeur ajoutée pour se déplacer sans que ça impacte trop l'environnement, pour chauffer les installations sans que ça impacte trop l'environnement, pour créer de nouvelles manières d'utiliser l'énergie de telle sorte qu'elle impacte le moins possible l'environnement. Et c'était un très très gros pôle industriel qui se trouve là à Anvers et qui est en train donc de travailler de façon très très proactive pour développer de nouvelles technologies et aidé évidemment par le plan financier dont je viens de parler.
Thank you very much. I think, one of the outcomes from the Heads of State meeting in September on the SDGs will be a recognition that at the moment there isn't the amount of money that we need to invest in delivering the SDGs. I think the figure from the World Bank was something like 3 to 5 trillion. So one of the questions is, how do you get access to more of this capital market funds? And so maybe member states should be thinking about that, in what role that the UN might play in helping to nudge some of the institutions in the capital market to actually reward good things as opposed to bad things, and to allow more money for innovation, because I think that would be great. So I have a question for Latvia. Latvia, how can innovative business models be taken up in the context of countries such as Latvia? What is required to ensure their success?
Yeah, thank you for having us here. I think we heard a lot of good examples how to move towards sustainable business models. We believe and we see that innovation as such is essential for decoupling resource consumption and economic growth, as well reaching SDGs. But at the same time, it's really important to understand that innovation is not only happening in the digital sphere. And as we see, a lot of policymakers, also society, don't understand that innovation is more than just startups and digitalization. So we see that it's really important with the help of innovation, help deliver societal changes. And in this place, it's really important that the close synergy between the government and private sector can happen, and it's really crucial for that. We see that in micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, sustainable business models can help spread the knowledge and skills across society, as well technology transfer, also implement environment standards, and as it was mentioned earlier, help local societies and municipalities to adapt to this ever-changing environment. And all in all, that can help us tackle the problem with extensive natural resource use and climate change. At the moment, Latvia is second greenest country in the European Union. In large extent, help to abundance of natural resources, and also at least almost 40% of our energy consumption comes from renewable energy. And in this place, I want to return what I mentioned, that synergy between the government and private sector. For example, in Latvia, government has designed policy to enhance energy production, well, electricity in case for renewable resources. And one good example in this, in Latvia, like in a lot of other states in the world, we have regional disparities, and this policy helped to build a lot of cogeneration plants where you can produce electricity and heat. And in one place, which is nearby Latvia-Russian border, a small enterprise was established which produced electricity, and instead of heat just letting it out in the air, they constructed greenhouses, and they produce tomatoes, they produce cucumbers in there, so they can actually pay twice as much in wages for people who are living there than the average wage there is. So I think this is a really great example. How can you reduce the use of natural resources and move towards sustainable business models?
That's very interesting. I mean, I think and I don't know if it was a PPP that you had to develop some of that, but there's some very good work being done by the UN Economic Commission for Europe, which you're all members of, or the ones who've spoken, where they have PPPs for Sustainable Development Goals principles. And I think if we can try and make sure that any of the work that's going on, those principles that have been developed by colleagues of yours, are actually brought back into the capital. So I'm going to ask Romania next. Which initiatives did the government of Romania take to create enabling conditions for eco-innovation, eco-enterprise, and a wider take-up of the circular economy?
Thank you very much for the question. I'm glad I have this opportunity, since my country, Romania, is one of the fastest growing economies in the European Union. And us, the Ministry of Environment and the whole government supports very much eco-innovation and low carbon future for us all. As some of the minister said, in Romania we have a synergy among the ministries, the government ministries, our agencies, the local municipalities, and when we talk about innovation and sustainability, we have a lot of public research institutes and universities. Since in Romania, in the university environment was an environment that a lot of clusters were created, and eco parks and business incubators. We have a national program called Startup Nation, which where the Ministry of Environment is a partner. It has a line for IT sector development. I can tell you, last year we had 8,000 startup companies that were financed 50,000 euro each. Also for the IT sector, we have special conditions that we negotiated with our finance ministry, with our labor ministry. For example, in Romania, the IT sector, the salary contributions, the salary tax, which was about 15%, is covered by the government. So we support it a lot. Actually, we have 3 or 4 large cities in Romania, where the IT sector is very well developed. Universities are preparing a lot of students, but for example, now in Romania, if you want to start up a company with 100 IT workers, maybe you have to prepare 1 year ahead, because it's already being a very competitive environment. As I said, a very important part in sustaining eco-innovation belong in Romania to the municipalities, because also municipalities are the first responsible institution for local environment. And they usually build eco-incubators for startups. When we say startup, I mean a small or medium business. There are certain conditions. To have minimum 5 workers, to receive this finance, you have to have your activity at least for 5 years. Otherwise, you must return the money. And in particular, we support eco-innovation in circular economy and waste management, since waste management is the #1 environmental problem of Romania that we tackle and we address. And we have a waste management national plan that we adopted last year, and now we are implementing it locally. Also, we support a lot all the eco-innovation and startups that regard mobility, since in some big cities we have air pollution problem that we have to address. And in our Ministry of Environment, we also have some very big national projects with a lot of money involved that I am very happy to share with you right now. It is called Environment Financial Agency, that I coordinate myself. It uses the pollution tax and the tax from the Euro ETS system, the auction for the carbon certificates, so it's a pretty big budget. And I think we implement some projects that can be a good example for Europe and for the rest of the world. Our most successful project is a car renewable fleet project. It consists in giving a voucher for purchasing a new car. And for the full electric vehicle, I think we have the biggest eco bonus in the world, 10,000 euro for a full electric. We also finance hybrid and plug-in, I think with less money, between 1,000 and 6,000 euro. We also have one national program where we use the ETS money, which is called Green Home, and it consists in providing an incentive of 4,500 euro for households for purchasing photovoltaic solar panels. And this year's budget is 90 million euro. We expect about 25,000 beneficiaries. Also, we implemented last year a project for vouchers for household appliances. And of course, we have a lot of awareness programs, both in circular economy, in waste management, but also in climate related, because I think awareness programs are needed in every country.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
We're going to move on to Peru. Your question, Peru. Are you doing it in Spanish or English? In Spanish. Peru has been one of the countries pioneering at the global level the uptake on eco-innovation approaches, including its application to SMEs. How does the policy environment support and promote eco-innovation?
En el Perú, el sector industrial, bajo diferentes actividades, ámbitos de acción y tamaños, de actividad ha emprendido acciones para desarrollar modelos de negocios innovadores. Tenemos el Centro de Producción Más Limpia y también el de Coeficiencia a Ecoinnovación. Esto ha permitido que algunos sectores implementen proyectos como, por ejemplo, los de maquinaria para fabricación de alimentos y bebidas, equipo médico, quirúrgico, tanto a nivel odontológico y veterinario, en estructuras y piezas metálicas tanto para el sector minería y construcción, pero también en envases de latas para bebidas. Es importante también resaltar la participación que tiene el sector público y privado en el desarrollo de industrias transformadoras de residuos o material de descarte, como lo hemos nombrado en nuestra nueva ley integral de residuos sólidos. Y esto es camino hacia la ecoeficiencia, pero a generar también empleos verdes y economía circular. Por ejemplo, venimos trabajando 3 ministerios de forma conjunta, Ministerio de Producción, Ministerio de Trabajo y Ministerio de Ambiente, para formalizar el sector de los recicladores que participan del ciclo de la cadena de valor del reciclaje, y estamos acompañándolos con innovación para que ellos puedan agregar valor y puedan vender directamente a la industria grande y no necesariamente al intermediario, que es perverso. En ese proceso, el Perú en diciembre del año pasado ha aprobado la ley de plásticos, que prohíbe el uso de plásticos de un solo uso y materiales descartables de polietileno expandido. Esto ha permitido el nacimiento de nuevas empresas ofertando productos alternativos al plástico, y los que ya existían han potenciado su trabajo. Pero también la industria tradicional de plástico se está innovando, está invirtiendo en nuevas tecnologías que les está permitiendo usar, por ejemplo, residuos del bagazo de la caña de azúcar para sacar envases compostables o biodegradables. También esta ley ha puesto una cuota para el uso de plástico PET, de PET, los envases de bebidas y alimentos de este material tienen que tener cuando mínimo un 15% de material reciclado. Esto ha permitido que también hayan empresas que han invertido en tecnología para hacer el REPET, y también nos ha permitido tener acuerdos tanto al Ministerio de Producción como al Ministerio del Ambiente con el sector de producción de alimentos y bebidas en acuerdos de producción limpia. Gracias.
Thank you very much. We now have the European Union, and a first question to them would be, which role do you envisage digitalization playing in accelerating the shift towards a circular economy and energy objectives? You have the floor.
Thank you so much for that. Well, in the European Union, it has already been mentioned by the speakers, the minister speakers from the countries. We look at the interaction between challenges and technological changes from the digitalization, climate transition, and circular economy point of view. So I think we need to have much more of a holistic approach. Only last week, going very specifically to circular economy, the Commission published its report on the implementation of the action plan, which started only in 2015, of all 54 measures that were implemented. And I think what is highlighted in this report is that the Commission has been successful in developing what is obviously needed, a systemic approach, and at the same time establishing that this is an irreversible trend for businesses, for public authorities, and for civil society. I think one example that we could refer to, and which has already been referred to by previous speakers, is plastic strategy. We have been involved in implementing this strategy, in a pledging campaign, and in therefore moving for having the demand for recycled plastic much more in the market. Of course, added to that, you need to have a platform of sharing of best practices, because these are happening in different parts of the European Union and different parts of the world. But I think in order for that to create the multiplier effect, you need to have a platform, which we do as well. And in the first year of operation, this platform has helped to share more than 300 best practices. Of course, we need to have a look at the challenges and at the opportunities. Digitalization in our society creates both of them. So if you have a look at the, I would say, opportunities, we have very good assets already. We have informed consumers, conscientious consumers. We have a consumer that wants to change consumption pattern. And also, we have new business models sprouting all over the place. We need to add more to that knowledge and the skills. But of course, you have then challenges. The more you have Dematerialization, the more you have challenges on, for instance, the use of energy. The more you have apps for using mobility, for instance, the more you need energy consumption. The more that you have digital applications and artificial intelligence, the more you have threats of security. So, of course, these need to be factored in. But adding to all this, I think what we need to do more of is to look at solutions from the point of view of the holistic challenges, but at the same time, mitigation by the opportunities. And I would say more of a focus on opportunities. Just to give one example, I mentioned the challenge of energy. The European Union and the European Commission is working on a European processor initiative, for instance, which the aim of that is to bring onto the market a low-power microprocessor. It brings together 23 partners from 10 European countries. And the idea there, I think, is a living example of how you look at the whole life cycle of the product, of the service, and to find solutions from the point of view of energy efficiency, the digital single market itself, and also the circular economy agendas. None of them can be ignored. So you have to address all of them. And of course, more and more of these solutions need to be sprouting about, I think, in terms of also collaborative spirit as we go along forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think the European Union and your team have done some excellent work on the circular economy and helped move it up the political agenda, hopefully become a term which drives global discussions as we move forward. We have two of the other experts who we're going to be asked to speak now. So Olivia Yan, who's the Sustainable Global Lead for Deloitte, thank you. Not Detroit. Detroit's a town or city in the United States, and you're not that. Okay. With 25 years of experience in sustainability and supply chain management consulting, Olivia Yan is an internationally recognized environmental advisor for public-private decision-making. Throughout his career, he has advised multiple public organizations to design impactful environmental policies and help multinational companies to set up and implement sustainability strategies at all levels of the value chain.
Thank you for having me here. So I will comment on the drivers which exist today for corporate organizations to increase their interest or ambition in embedding sustainability in their operating model. And I think there's today multiple drivers which would include variable members, investors, science and knowledge, but also millennials population and increased global transparency and time acceleration. I'll just comment a few of those. I think the idea is that corporate leadership will be increasingly challenged by investors on one side and end consumers, final clients on the other side. For example, we've also mentioned sustainable finance as a key driver. As you probably all know now, the European Commission has a very ambitious agenda which will impact all the sectors of finance, including retail banking practices. And even in the US, as we speak, $1 out of four is invested with ESG criteria. Then we also have increasing knowledge on what are the limits in which the economy needs to operate. We had the IPCC special report last year. More recently, we had the Eat Lancet Commission report, which clearly defined what it takes to have sustainable food systems by 2050. And this will have massive consequences for the food system and the companies which operate in the sector. There's a specific population which also has a huge impact today on corporates. These are millennials. Millennials are setting the bar very high when contemplating which company they would like to work for as a young professional, which consumer brand they will trust when they go and buy their products, but also what they want their savings to be used when they're invested for their pension fund. So, this specific population is having a greater influence on corporates, because corporates, organizations need to recruit talents and need those people to be successful. The challenges that companies will face are mostly related to the fact that a company never operates alone. They are part of an ecosystem. They have customers, they have business partners, suppliers, and every change needs the holistic perspective, and systematic changes need to be implemented. And technology can help, of course, but is not everything. Just to take an example, if you're a retailer, you've captured the increasing appetite from consumers for more transparent supply chain and better agricultural practices. And we have technologies which can help on supply chain transparency, on better monitoring with big data, etc. But still, there's a lot of supply chain partners that you need to onboard if really you want to implement these technologies and drive changes. So the challenge for companies is really to be able to create the momentum to change the complete supply chain, and not only the operations which are under their direct control. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to the second question that we'd asked people to consider, which was where do you see the most promising opportunities for cooperation and partnership to harness the power of environmental information and data to inform action by government, business and citizens. And we're going to have one of our other panelists from the SOFA. Hugh Weldon is the co-founder and CTO of Evoca, the young champion, and is also a young champion of the Earth for Europe. He's 25-year-old master of mechanical engineering from the country of Meath in Ireland. He was hoping Bob Geldof was going to turn up, but it didn't happen. Growing up in an Irish countryside gave him a keen interest in and appreciation of the natural world, and have had an impact in his experience as a volunteer teacher in Kolkata, India, when he was 17. During university, he joined the fossil-free divestment movement, and since graduation co-founded Evoca. So your question is, ensuring access to reliable information for consumers is very important to guide our decisions, but at times consumers are bombarded with information. How can we best or better leverage the power of consumers?
That's great. Thanks very much, Felix. And first of all, it's a privilege to be here as a young person to be part of this dialogue, and thanks very much to the member states for your contributions. And just to address that question briefly, well, yes, absolutely, consumers are bombarded with information, and that's because the information that's given to them isn't designed to promote sustainable consumption. It's designed to make us buy things we simply do not need. And it was touched on by Latvia and again by Olivier Jan about how to decouple resource consumption and economic growth, and then the Eat Lancet Commission as well, and how we really need to rapidly transition to more sustainable consumption patterns. But first of all, when we talk about consumers, it's easy to forget that consumers are just people like you and I desperately trying to find a way to reduce our impact and find a way to engage in climate change and environmental degradation. So, and why that's really important to grow this ground bottom-up movement, it's not just to move the markets and show big business that there's a real opportunity here, but it's also to turn up the heat on all of us here at UNEA to make sure that we push forward with the urgency that's required. And so that's kind of what the inspiration was for our small team to start Avoco. So it's a smartphone app that lets consumers photograph their food shopping receipt and get a climate impact score for the food products that they've bought. We take into account the Eat Lancet recommendation, or the reference diet. And it's all about tracking your progress over time. So when we talk about consumer information, at the moment, it's the way we give information simply isn't good enough, because consumers are much more interested in, I suppose, tracking their progress over time and being able to improve at something over time. So it's not good enough to give a one-off intervention to release this, I suppose, a scientific report. We need to try and actively address these consumers through better tools, I suppose. So that's what we're really trying to develop with Voco, our smartphone app. And then further on that, so what feeds into our app, as well as the user experience being key to how we engage consumers, is the life cycle assessment data that goes into it. So at the moment, it's very difficult to get brand-specific life cycle data. So what we have to do is work per category, per region, and make compromises along the way. So for member states and members of industry, and again, any UNEP here, what's really important is to push forward the need for life cycle assessment in companies that produce consumer goods. And second of all, to make that data readily and easily available to consumers so they can make informed decisions. And there's a lot of companies really pushing forward saying, oh, I'm in support of the SDGs, but for example, SDG 12, responsible consumption and production, consumer information plays a key part in that, and any company that actively withholds information that could help consumers make more sustainable purchases simply can't be seen to be in compliance with these goals. So that's what I'd like to say, Felix. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I mean, I thought that last point on information from companies is very important. I mean, one of the issues that was pushed around Rio +20 was the issue of all companies having to produce their ESG reports, and South Africa led the process of making it a listing requirement for their stock exchanges. Brazil did it in the run-up to Rio. I know the European Union's doing things. That will give the data so that you would know what's going on. Now, I asked Hugh to come because he's going off. Where are you going?
So today, 15th of March, the largest youth demonstration for climate in history is taking place. Schools Strike for Climate, Friday for Future. I'm sure most of you have already heard of it. So it's taking place in Karura Forest today as well, in Nairobi. So at 1 o'clock, that's where I'll be heading for sure.
And if you need to go a little earlier, that's why I asked him to come up. But I think that's something hopefully we can all support.
Thank you. That's super. Thank you, Felix.
Okay, we're going to go back to another one of our panelists. Desta Mbata is the CEO of Atlas, the African Transformation Leapfrogging Advisory Service. Desta provided advice to African countries for the development of transformational policy and planning processes that enhance Africa's leapfrogging potential to inclusive, low-carbon, resource-efficient economies. Desta's been working with UN Environment, or is it UNEP? In several positions promoting resource efficiency, sustainable consumption and production, and green economy. Take us away.
Thank you very much, Felix. I will focus on underlining some key points, particularly in relation to developing countries and innovation in developing countries, and perhaps provide some suggestion on how UN system can help, including UNEP, in supporting developing countries. The first point I would like to make is the innovation of the 21st century is fundamentally different from what we used to have in the 20th century. This is because of both the sustainability issue, but the disruptive technologies that we have because of digitization, Industry 4.0, renewable energy development, is opening up the space for every country. So innovation is no more the territory of the developed north. Every country has a possibility to move into that space because it has that distributionary effect. And we are seeing it happening in Africa. There are thousands of innovation happening in different areas: waste to resource conversion, renewable energy development, agricultural productivity improvement, and so on, driven by African youth, African youngsters. And it is happening across the region. What we are lacking is, as a developing country or developing region, we do not have the infrastructure that could support this process and enable those young creators and innovators to move into the actual implementation phase. So what can we do to support that? I will focus on 4 or 5 key points. The first missing element is we don't have policies for science, technology, innovation in most of these countries. So governments can help young African creators, innovators, by creating that policy framework that will support and encourage these innovators to be more effective. The second point is the physical infrastructure that they need to have in place. And to cover that, some countries have moved into creating innovation hubs. Even private sectors are moving into creating innovation hubs that provide the space for innovation and creativity, where you could have co-creation, collaboration, and so on. This can be encouraged significantly by international development partners. The third point is information. Most of these youngsters are lacking, particularly when it comes to information related to sustainability. They don't have that information. So how can the UN system and the UN environment can influence this creativity and innovation by providing sustainability-related inputs, including life cycle assessment and so on. Finally, there is of course there is a need to create windows for funding and institutional support. So by providing this kind of support, I think we will enable African young creators and innovators to be active contributors to the transition we would like to see across the region and across the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was very, very enlightening. Pierre Contremanche is the Opel Sustainability and Supply Chain Strategist. Opel is a company which makes data accessible and actionable so organizations can make informed decisions about investments in sourcing process and that their supply chains support smallholder farmers and small-scale producers and improve the visibility of their products in the supply chain for consumers. The question I'm going to ask you is how can access to environmental data promote collaboration and alignment of businesses of different sizes towards sustainability? How can smallholder producers take advantage of those developments?
Thank you, Felix.
I think you've turned it on.
Okay, thank you, Felix. I'm very happy to be with you today. So technology is developing so rapidly and the pace is continuously increasing. So my biggest fear is that many people could be left behind, and my biggest hope is that we could harness the power of technology. The development of technology follows no plan, no coordinations. Decisions are taken and investments are made by large technological companies and privileged individuals. Big data is giving rise to new economy where the largest market are no longer in producing goods, but capturing and processing information. In the context, smallholder producers' data has sustainable value, a multi-billion market. When I founded Traceability in 2011, telling that we could trace raw material from the farms, the mine, the sea, the forest, map the site and collect granular information on each smallholder producers, most people thought I was crazy. Today, many private organizations, soft commodity traders, and NGOs are doing it, and we now have competitors. Great news. Last year, we merged my company with Uptel, a Canadian-based organization, to create the largest traceability service provider in the world. We did it because at Uptel, we developed technology to create a better world. We are a B corporation. We want to show that we can make profit whilst developing public good products and services, and that technology should serve people regardless of their status. We believe that traceability is the best solutions to connect everyone in the global supply chains and avoid exclusion. Address global issues because we can't locate where they are and who is involved. Fight counterfeiting. Increase production, control waste, and promote circular economy through intelligent supply chains. Build trust and confidence, enable accountability. I asked my 650 colleagues distributed in 16 countries on input for decisions. I won't have the time to be exhaustive, but I can summarize their concerns and ideas. On legislation, governments should adopt more improved traceability legislations across all critical industries that affect people, the environment, and economies. How to ensure that data harvesting and mining and AI are not used against concurrent countries or by privileged individuals. On data privacy, how do you react if I inform you that AI is progressing more rapidly in North America than in Europe because data privacy legislation is less stringent, among other reasons? How to ensure that smallholders and consumers benefit from the data they disclose? On taxation, most countries where technology is used don't receive tax revenue. This is one reason why technology development is more and more concentrated. On inequalities, we will soon be in a situation where every acre of land will need to produce as much as possible. When this will happen, I am very concerned that hundreds of millions of smallholders might lose access to their piece of land to the benefit of large corporations. Decision makers will argue that they would be better as labor. On collaboration, urgency is here. We need to act rapidly and at scale. No government, no consumer good company, no technology company alone can solve the issues we are facing. We absolutely need to collaborate at different levels. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask the European Union and Latvia to come back in very shortly for a small intervention on how is digitalization changing the business environment and supporting innovation for sustainability. If the European Union could make their comments.
Thank you so much for giving me the floor again. I just want to stick to three main points. First of all, I think digitalization and the tools that are becoming more and more available are helping much more the traceability of materials in the value chain. This has already been mentioned. We see it much more in the plastic recycling world, and it's really becoming important there because of the campaign, shall we say, for plastic pollution, against plastic pollution. Why? Because I think it's important to trace the hazardous materials and to remove them out of the loop. Number two, I think it's about consumer power. We have a very receptive audience. We need to empower them even more. But it's also important in business-to-business transactions, not only about consumers. Just to go back to consumers, we have to remind ourselves that 40% of Europeans use their smartphones to look for product information when they are shopping. So they are inundated with information, true, but they are also being quite judicious about how to use it. So I think we need to also address that. I think an excellent example here is the recent launch by the European Commission of the European Product Database for Energy Labelling, which will enable even more in the future consumers to search the database and to start looking at energy labels and product information sheets in order to help them make informed purchasing decisions for a wide range of appliances. Last point, to ensure sustainable solutions, we cannot only just look at the equipment itself. Most of this is empowered by software, and I think the software itself must also meet sustainability criteria. In other words, the system in which the software is integrated. And in this regard, I'm happy to say that the Commission is conducting a study on the energy efficiency of providing end-to-end digital services using cloud computing. Thank you.
Thank you, and I hope my country will still have access to that in a few weeks' time. We'll have to see. Latvia.
Yeah, short comment. We see that it's really important if you want to move forward with digitalization. It's really important to invest in infrastructure and in digital skills and citizen digital skills. For example, in Latvia, for the past 20 years, there have been huge investments in digital infrastructure to ensure that almost every citizen has access to the internet. Approximately 88% of territory of Latvia has access to ultra-fast broadband internet. That really helps people to access information that they want and need. And in terms of waste management, as European Union also also mentioned. We use the same things in Latvia. Like we see that the wider use of these digital services and interconnectivity between information systems allows us more easier to track waste streams that are in the country and that move inwards country, and also gives people access to the people information about the nearest waste separation points that they need. Also, I think it's really good that inside our Ministry of Environmental Protection and Regional Development, we also work really tough and really hard on ICT sphere. Therefore, it's easier for us to develop different kind of applications and infrastructure in order to move forward with SDGs and reduce natural resource consumption. For example, we have developed a life cycle cost assessment calculator, environmental SOS app, and other that help people to contribute to better environment.
Thank you very much. We have one final speaker, and then I'll do a sum up of what we have today. And we asked Ambassador Thompson from Barbados to be the last one because she's also the chair of the Science and Technology, or co-facilitator or co-coordinator of the Science, Technology and Innovation Forum, which will be meeting in May in New York. And we're asking her how she can bring the outcomes from this discussion to the forum, and could we also hear some reflections on its implication for youth? Ambassador.
Thank you very much, Felix. Well, the very fact, to start where you ended, the very fact that I am here and go back to New York to have a meeting with Desta on the forum means that I can inform my co-facilitator, who is Ambassador Chartova, on what transpired here and what the views of the forum were, what is emerging from UNEA, and how we need to capture that at New York in May. But there are some wider issues that about which we are concerned. One of them is the full engagement of youth in the forum, and what we are proposing to do this year is to address a number of issues. For instance, to reach out to member states and to get them to agree to send youth delegates along with their delegations. And we are going to try a bit of a different approach. Many countries have youth parliaments and NGOs which are constituted by young people, but they can't get access to the UN. There are challenges relative to the formalization of the process. So we're going to bring them through the delegates' door. We're going to ask ambassadors to be willing to help us in a sponsorship process, so that if they can come up with some of the resources, then the various embassies can help to bring them there. And that is important, we think, because a lot of innovation is coming from young people. And we want to be able to capture that, let it feed into the forum, and in fact to foster a level of excitement and innovation across the globe. We are particularly concerned to include women as well. Very often, because in the developing world, a lot of women are denied access to education at every level, primary, secondary, tertiary. They're also denied access to capital. So even where they have great ideas, it is extremely difficult for them to get the resources to bring them to scale, to bring them to market, and to become part of the formal sector. So we are going to press very hard to find examples of female scientists, females, women who are involved in technology and innovators, and have them as very much part of the show and tell. the visible example of success and encourage more female innovation. And one of the things that we hope to do is to have a very tangible outcome beyond the document to see if we can get financial institutions to help to give support to female-led businesses and to influence procurement policies, because that is very, very critical to sensitization for greater women and youth involvement. In relation to developing countries, SMEs really, there needs to be more focus on SMEs, and therefore you're going to see in this year's Sense and STI Forum a greater emphasis being placed on SMEs. I don't know how much longer we have, but there are other points that I think are critical. The key issue is that there are several things that are being discussed in this space that can and will inform the forum in May, and so that we are moving in sync to really give countries and the wider stakeholder community what they would like to have, and to ensure that this year's forum has wide beneficial impact and tangible outcomes beyond a consensus document.
I mean, I think it's not just Desta you need to speak to. You need to speak to UNEP and see what they can bring to the table, but also Desta's particular work here in Africa, I think, will be a really good thing. So maybe there can become a little bit of bilateral work after this. I'm going to give you a quick summary of what we've done today, and then let you escape for lunch. So in closing, I was going to share you first the point that we need to link the STI Forum to what's going on here, and that these lessons need to feed into that, and where possible that we can try and use both events to be an amplifier of good practice and also possibly the creator of new partnerships. I think that would be very good. Many countries are leading and inspiring others, and we've heard that today, and enabling sustainability at the core of their strategy. But we must also acknowledge that much more needs to be done to transform our economies and societies. Governments play a very strategic role in ensuring this transformation, and that the shift to sustainable, innovative business models reaches scale. A strong and coherent policy framework is required to boost innovation and new technologies. This is particularly important for SMEs. Funding needs to be available to support these innovative business which pioneer new ideas and business models. Innovative technologies can help overcome the infrastructure gaps, especially in the context of Africa, and help avoid lock-in unsustainable and inefficient infrastructure with little or negative economic return. Big data is giving rise to new economy where the largest markets are no longer in producing goods but capturing and processing information. Ensuring access of consumers and citizens to information enables them to become a key player in solving the problem. And I would say, just add to that, that I think, we need to think as these new innovations come in, that we do have a just transition, that people are valued in the context of moving through what will be a very large change over the next 15 years as these new technologies come in. So I'd like you to put your hands together and thank the presenters, our experts, and our governments. Thank you very much. And you're free now to go for lunch if you'd like to. Thank you very much for the chance to dialogue.
Good afternoon, everyone.